Alright, so take a look at your paper. This is going to go either really well if you listen, or you're going to be super confused. Okay, we're going to bring back inverses. And you should kind of remember the word inverses because we talked about them last semester. Okay, the notation for inverse is F with the little -1 on it. So if the normal one is F and you put a little -1, that means inverse. So if you ever see that, that's what that stands for. Now, we're going to talk about two different things. First, we're going to talk about the graphs. Then we're going to come back and talk about the equations. Does anybody remember for an inverse what you do with each of the ordered pairs? You switch them. That's right. So, right here it says the domain and range for a function and its inverse are, I'm going to put, what did I put? Not flipped, reversed. Now, I would not put opposites because you don't want to go back into your notes and see that and think you're changing signs. You're not changing signs, you're just changing the order. Okay? So we're going to do graph number 1 before we fill in this other stuff. So right here, I want you to put this into y equals in your calculator. And then I want you to graph it. Okay? So that's where we're going to start. Y equals, then graph it. Remember, no homework today. We're just doing the notes, and then you're done. Yep. So go into y equals. Okay, just like that. And then I'm going to hit graph just to see what it looks like. Now, the same rules for square roots apply to these as well. So if it's a +4 in the parentheses, where do I expect my graph to start? -4 and then -3. So already we know that the vertex is -4, -3.
Yeah.
Okay, and hopefully you remember that from yesterday because we had talked about you switch the sign on the number with X. I realize you can't see that. Okay, you switch the sign on this number, you keep that number the same. Okay, let's hit graph. So here's my picture. -4, -3. I want you to go to the table and we're going to write 2 points above it, 2 points below it. So second table here. -4, -3 is here. And I'm going to write down the 2 points above it and then the 2 points below it. I'm going to put it here in my table. Okay, so the point directly above it's -5, -2. And then above that is -6, 1. Then below that is -3, -2. And then -2, 1. Now, we are only going to do the first 2 examples with the calculator, and then we're going to go back to just sketching, okay, like we were doing yesterday. So the first 2 will take a little bit longer because we're doing specific points, and then we'll move away from that. Okay, so let's plot those points. -6, 1. -5, -2. -4, Now, what shape should I be making as I graph this? A parabola, a U. Very good. Okay, so that's my f of x. That's my original function. It's the shape of a U. Now, how did we say you're going to find all of your new points? You're going to do what to them? You're going to reverse them. You're going to flip them. So if my original point was -6, 1, what's my new point? Good, 1, -6. And I'm going to graph as I go, but I'm going to graph now my second set of points for my f inverse. So 1, -6 is here. Then -5, -2 backwards is -2, -5. You're just flipping the order, yep.
It will be the same shape.
It will be the same shape, but it'll be facing a different direction. Okay, so -3, -4, -2, -3, and then 1, -2. Okay?
It is 180, right?
Yep. Like a turn, kind of. Yeah. Okay, this would be called f to the -1 of x. And remember, what does that stand for? That means inverse. Okay, so whenever you see that little -1, that's an inverse. There were a couple questions like about this on y'all's semester exam that were like pretty bad overall. Okay, you're just switching them. Okay, now I want you to remember something else. We also talked about when we covered inverses that if you draw in your diagonal, okay, and it doesn't have to be perfect, but draw it in. Do you see how these match on either side? Okay, you should have a symmetry across the diagonal. So that's another thing that you may or may not remember. If you don't, then just hear me say it now. Okay, that your graphs should be symmetric across the diagonal. Okay, so if that doesn't happen, that means you messed up either the first graph or the second graph or maybe both. Okay? Alright, now we're going to do the algebraic inverse, okay? Now, we also covered this in the fall, but we did a bunch of functions. Today we're going to only stick with squared and square root. So over here, I'm going to write inverse. And we're going to follow the steps, bless you, that are right here. So we're going to follow these steps up here on the side. So to solve for an inverse, the first thing you're going to do is switch the variables x and y. You're going to switch their position. Now, if there's an f of x, okay, look right here. What is f of x the same as? Is it an x or a y? F of x counts as a y. So I'm going to come back to this original equation here, and instead of an f of x, I'm going to write a y in that spot instead. Okay? Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to switch the letters. So instead of keeping this as a y equals, I'm going to switch it to be an x equals. And instead of having this be an x plus 4, now it's going to be a y plus 4. So the first thing that you do is you switch the positions of the letters. The second thing that you do is we're about to solve for y. So we're going to reverse the side so that y is back on the left side. So I'm going to take this whole side over here, and I'm going to write this side first. Now, most of y'all can probably do these two steps at the same time. It's really up to you if you want to do them together or separate. Okay, so I switch the letters, then I switch the sides. Then, after I do those two things, I just want to get my y by itself. So, let's do it. If I start with this equation here, I'm going to drop my railroad tracks. How do I get rid of a minus 3? Okay, so plus 3 plus 3. So I have x plus 3 on this side. Now, on my other side, the 3's cross out, right? That's why we did it. Okay, so I have y plus 4 squared. Can I get rid of the plus 4 right now? I have to square root. This is why. Remember, if it's inside the parentheses, you can't touch it till you get rid of the parentheses. So I'm going to do a square root here, and I'm going to do a square root here. The squared and the square root cross out, so this one and this one are gone. It's just a y plus 4 left over from the beginning. And then when I square root, what am I supposed to put in front of the symbol on this side? Two things. Plus or minus. Good. Oh, oops, I put a 4. It should have been a 3. Sorry. Okay, and then how do I get rid of the plus 4? Minus 4. Now, when I minus 4, I cannot minus it inside with the 3. The reason why is because, remember, that 3 is inside the square root, even though I kind of messed it up. It's supposed to be. Okay, so the 3 and the 4 can't go together. This is your answer. Y equals plus or minus.
Is it an I or something?
No. Because the negative is not inside the square root. That's where the i's were, all the imaginary numbers. Okay? Now, I want to point something out to you. We learned how to graph these yesterday. What would your start point be if I asked you to graph this yesterday? -3, -4. What do you notice your start point is in the middle of your table? -3, -4. So these should be giving you the same answer. Now, I want to point something else out to you, too. Do you see how you have a plus minus here in the front? Okay, this top half, pretend this is gone. This is the positive square root. Where's the negative square root? On the bottom. So it's actually, this is two separate square root graphs. This is the top square root, and then this is the negative square root. So when it says plus or minus, that's what it means, is that you have a top half and a bottom half, you have both. Okay? Alright, type in the next one into your calculator, please. Okay, this is the last one that we're going to do specific points on, and then we'll just go back to what we did yesterday doing shapes. So y equals, remember f of x is really just y, so I'm going to put a y there. And then I'm typing in square root x plus 8. Now, based on what we learned yesterday, which way should your graph be shifted?
Down.
Down?
Oh, sorry, left.
To the left. Good. So look, I'm going to hit graph here.
That's
Okay, and I see it did move left. That's exactly what we learned yesterday, right? Now, I want specific points, but I don't want any decimals. So I'm going to go second table here, and I'm only going to pick points that are like whole numbers, not any decimals. So negative 8, 0, go ahead and put that in your table.
on the top.
Yeah, here at the top. So negative 8, 0. My next one is negative 7, 1. And then these next ones are decimals. We don't want those, so I'm going to skip them. Then negative 4, 2, that's a partner. Negative 4, 2.
Negative 3, and that is also
And then 1, 3 is a partner. And then
8 and 4.
8, 4 is a partner. Good. Okay. So, take those 5 points, put them on your graph, flip them around to be backwards, and then graph it. So, negative 8, 0 is here. Negative 7, 1 is here. Negative 4, 2, 1, 3, and 8, 4. Okay? So there's your graph. Okay, now we're going to graph our inverse. So remember that your points are all reversed. So if it was a negative 8, 0, what is it now? 0, negative 8, that would be here. 1, negative 7. That would be here. Okay, 2, negative 4. 3, 1. And then 4, 8. Okay. Then I'm going to connect my dots, and I see that I still have, just like Musa said, I still have the same shape. It's just like flipped around a different direction. Okay, guys? Okay, but you still have like a symmetry, and if you draw in your diagonal here, you should see that it should still perfectly cut your picture in half. Okay, just like it did last time. If it doesn't, that means that you messed something up a little bit. Maybe one of your points is wrong. Okay? Alright, now we're going to find the inverse, and it should be the same as this red graph that we just drew. Okay, so let's do it. First thing I'm going to do is switch the positions of x and y in the equation. So instead of y equals, it's going to be what now? Okay, x equals. And instead of x plus 8, now it's square root y plus 8. Then after I rewrite the inverse, I'm going to switch the sign so that my y ends up back on the left. So I'm going to let the y plus 8 come first, and the x come second. And then remember, I just want to get y by itself after I switch the letters, switch the sides. How do I get rid of the square root? Square. And then square and square root do what to each other? Okay, cancel out. So now it's just a y plus 8 left over. How do I get rid of a plus 8? So I have y equals x squared minus 8. Now, last time, when we got to this step, this equation and this graph matched perfectly. Is that the case for this and this? Okay, almost. Which way would minus 8 shift my graph? Down 8. Did that happen? Yes, but what is the shape of x squared? It should be a u. How much of a u do I have? Only half of it. So, if you start out with only one square root, its partner is not the whole u, it's only going to be half of the u. So this is what I mean by that. If you were to draw, don't draw this on your paper, but just kind of look. If I complete the u here, and I complete the u here, okay, then it's perfect. But if you start with only 1/2, your inverse will also only be 1/2. Now, this is the way that the halves go together. If it's the top square root, it's going to go with the right side. Now, that should kind of make sense because think about top is positive, the right side is positive, so those go together. And then if it's a left side, it's going to go with the bottom square root. So from now on, you're not ever going to have both. You're going to have to pick a side. So we're going to write that down here at the bottom. If it's a positive square root, that's going to be the top or the right half of the parabola. And if it's a minus square root, that's going to be the bottom or the left half of the parabola. But the problem is that since a square root is only 1/2, you can only take 1/2 of the parabola or else they won't match each other perfectly. And we'll do examples of those. Go ahead and turn the page once you have that written down. This is a negative sign here. Okay, good? Okay, look at the next one now. From here on out, you can put your calculator to the side. We're just going to sketch these, otherwise it takes forever. So, which way would I shift graph number 3? Where would my start point be? Okay, 3 comma what? Okay, put 3, 4 on your graph. 3, 4. Now, normally I would graph a u, but I'm only going to graph half of a u. If I want x greater than 3, do I want the left side of the u or the right side of the u?
Right.
Okay, this is going to be the right side because it says greater than, right? So I'm going to do only this side of the u. Now, if you typed it in your calculator, you could get the exact points, but we don't need that. We really just need to know the shape. So it's going to go this way. Now, what would the domain be for just that half of the u? Not the whole thing, just that 1/2. Where does it start at? What x? Oops, x. 3, and it goes till when? Infinity. Okay, now let's do my range. How low does it start? 4, and it goes till how high? Infinity. Okay, now we're going to find the inverse. Then we're going to graph the inverse. So remember, to find the inverse, you're going to switch the letters. Remember that f of x counts as a y. So I'm going to change my y equals to be an x equals y minus 3 squared plus 4. And then after I switch the letters, what else do I have to switch? I have to switch the sides, right? Because I want to keep my y stuff all on the left side. So it'll be y minus 3 squared plus 4 equals x. And then from there, we just want to go through and solve. So how do I get rid of the plus 4? Okay. And remember, I'm going to minus the 4 from the x, so it'll just be x minus 4. Kind of keep it separate, though, because they can't go together. And then on this side, those cross out. I have y minus 3 squared. How do I get rid of a squared? Take the what? Okay, square root, square root. Then the square root and the squared cross out is just a y minus 3 left over. Okay, however, normally when you do a square root, you have to put a plus and a minus, right? Now you have to pick one. So if I started with the right side, will I pick a positive or a negative to go in the front? Okay, good. Positive square root x minus 4. Now, what if it had been the left side? We would have only picked the negative. Okay? Then from there, how do I get rid of the minus 3? Plus 3, plus 3. So this is my equation right here. It's going to be y equals positive x minus 4 plus 3. And now we're going to graph the inverse, make sure that they match each other. Okay, just like we did last time. So what will the starting point be for this new function? Okay, positive 4, 3. And what do you notice about the original point and this point? They're what to each other? They're just backwards. Yeah, they're corresponding, but they're backwards. So 4, 3 is going to go here. Oops. Nope. There. I put the dot in the wrong. Pretend that one's not there. Okay. So here's 4, 3. Now I have a choice. I can do a square root up or a square root down. Which one do I pick if I put a plus here? The square root up. And then when I draw my diagonal in, it should cut perfectly between my functions. So if I go from corner to corner, okay, does it cut right between them perfectly? Okay, yes it does. Okay, now let's talk about the domain. Remember, this is F inverse. This is the inverse one. What is the domain of this inverse? When does it start? Not the original one, but the new one. Okay, it starts at 4. It goes till when? Infinity. What's the range? How low does it start? 3, and it goes till when? Infinity. What do you notice about the domain and range down here? They're just backwards too. So if your x's and y's are backwards, then your domain and range are going to be backwards as well. This and this are the same. This one and this one are the same. So it's like everything is just kind of crisscrossed from each other. Okay? So if you know this one, you automatically know this one, yeah? Okay, let's do one more like that. Look at number 4. What's my start point going to be? Okay, -1, -6. That'd be here. And then I want to draw the whole U, but I can only pick one side. So if I want x less than -1, I want the left side only. Left half only. Yes. That's right. Okay, so -1, -6, and I'm going to do the left half only. Okay? All right, what is the domain? I'm going backwards forever, never, never, never. So that'd be what for my left side? Negative infinity till when? When does my graph stop? What x? Close, give me the x. -1. Because remember, for domain, we want to do the sides this way. So it goes backwards forever on this side, and then it stops at -1. Now let's do my range. What's my lowest point? -6 till where? Infinity. And if I know these answers, I kind of in my head already know the answers over here too, right? But we want to make sure that they're right. So, first thing we're going to do is change our y and our x in our equation. So I'm going to write inverse here. And it's going to be x equals y plus 1 squared minus 6. And then after I switch the letters, I'm going to also switch the sides. So these guys are going to reverse from each other. And then from there, I'm going to drop my railroad tracks. I switch the letters. I switch the sides. Now I'm going to get my y by itself. Now, just real quick, we're going to square root and have a plus or minus choice. If I had the left half, which one am I going to pick this time? The negative. Because remember, left side goes with the negative square root. So I'm going to add my 6 across. So it's x plus 6 over here. Then on this side, these guys are going to cross out, so I have y plus 1 squared. And then to get rid of the squared, I have to do what? Square root. And when you square root, that's where you're going to pick, instead of a plus and a minus, you're going to only pick the minus. So it'll be y plus 1 equals negative x plus 6. Okay, and then one more time, remember, why are we picking the minus? Because it was the left side. If it had been the right side, we would have picked the positive. Okay, then from there, to get rid of the plus 1, we're going to minus 1 across. Perfect. Okay, and then that we know how to graph from yesterday, right? If that's my equation, where is my start point going to be? -6, -1. Okay, so -6, -1 is back here. And then do I want the top half or the bottom half if I have a negative on it? Okay, I want the bottom half only, so it's going to go like this. And then I'm going to draw my diagonal just to make sure that it cuts my graph in half. Okay, which I can see that it does, but it's good to check. Okay, if I draw that in there, I can see that my graphs crisscross, okay, right on that line, just like they're supposed to. Now, let's talk about the domain and range, just for this graph, the new one. How far back does it go? -6 till when? Okay, look at the original range. Is that the same? Yeah. So we know that that's right. -6 to infinity is the correct domain for our new function. Okay, now think about your range. Okay, how high does it go right here? -1, but then this one is aimed down forever. That's a negative infinity, so it's going to perfectly match this one. -infinity to -1. So they should always match up. They're just going to be opposites to each other. Okay? All right, 2 more left like that. Okay, but this time we're going to start with the square root function, not the quadratic function. Okay? So, take a look at number 5. What will my start point be? Positive 2, 5, right? Okay, I was like, where did the 4 come from? Okay, 2, 5 is there. Now, look at your square root. Is it a positive square root or a negative square root? Okay, they didn't write it, but it counts as positive, so I'm going to draw like that. Now, question, if it's a top half, is it going to go with the left side or a right side? It's going to go with the right side. Okay, so this is a top half. So when I draw my U, I'm going to have to only choose the right side. Okay? Now let's do our domain and range before we find the inverse. What is the domain for the graph we just drew? Where does it start? 2 till when? Infinity. What is my range? How low does it start? 5, and it goes till when? Infinity. Okay, now let's find our inverse. So first thing that you're going to do is switch the x and the y. Remember, f of x is really a y in disguise. It's the same thing. So instead of y equals, now it's going to be x equals. And then it's going to be y minus 2 plus 5. And then after I write, I'm going to switch my sides around so that my y can be over on the left. Okay? Just like that. Okay, guys? Okay, so how do I get rid of a plus 5? Minus 5. So then on that side, I'm going to have x minus 5 equals. Other side, I have y minus 2. Okay, now how do I get rid of a square root? Square. Now, when you square the right side, I want you to make sure that you group with parentheses. That's how the number ends up inside the parentheses, is when you square it. Then from here, these guys cross out. Y minus 2 left over. And then how will I get rid of the minus 2? Okay, plus 2 plus 2. So it'll be y equals x minus 5 squared plus 2. Now, I'm going to have to pick a half in a second, and I'll show you how to do that. But let's do our start point. Okay, look at your equation. It's a minus 5 in here. What's my actual x then? Positive 5, 2. What do you notice about these 2 points? They're switched to each other. That's supposed to happen. So 5, 2 is here. And then I have to pick either the left side of the U or the right side of the U. If it's a top half, which half does that go with on the parabola? Right. Only the right side. Very good. Now, the way that you would write that is that, what was this x we said here? What x is this? 5. So then I would put x greater than 5. And that's how you would show that you want the right side only. Okay, and that's what the 4 is for here. I just kind of scribbled on it. So you would say this parabola, but I only want x greater than or equal to 5, so that I'm only choosing that right side. Okay, then just kind of look. Do you see that these are going to be backwards for that? Okay, my domain's 5 to infinity. That's good. And then my range is 2 to infinity. That also matches. So I'm just going to put arrows and then put same. Okay? But you should observe that that's going to be true every time. If it's not, you mess something up. Okay, one more like that, and then we're done. Okay, look at number 6. How is the 4 going to shift the graph? Look at where the 4 is. It's on the outside, so which way does it go? Left, right, up, down? Up 4. So I'm going to go up 4. 0, 4 is my start point. And then remember that if it's a square root, it's either going to curve up or curve down. How does it curve down? Okay, very good. We have a negative in front, so we're going to pick the bottom half. It's going to curve down like that. Okay? Then from there, what's my domain? 0 to infinity, very good, because it starts on the y-axis and it goes over forever. Now for my range, this arrow is pointed down. So what's my lowest point if it goes down forever? Till when? 4. Now if I know the answers there, I also know the answers here, so I'm just going to put arrows. Okay? Now let's do our inverse, and then we are done. So I'm going to switch the letters first. Remember, f of x is really a y. So instead of y equals, it's going to be x equals. And then negative square root y, and then plus 4. And then after I switch the letters, I'm going to also switch the sides, which I don't care if you do that in just one step instead of 2. That's fine with me. So it'll be negative root y plus 4, and then x. Okay, subtract 4, that's correct. So I have x minus 4. Now, at this point, some of you guys are going to want to try to get rid of this negative here. Here's why you don't have to do that. If you have a negative number and you square it, is it going to stay negative? No. So when you square both sides here, that's going to go away anyway. So that's why you don't really need to. A negative times a negative is a what? Positive. It's going to go away all on its own. So my negative square root and my squared cross out. Now it's just y equals x minus 4 squared. Okay, we'll pick this side in a second, but which way is the minus 4 going to shift the graph for the inverse? What will my start point be? Right 4. To the right 4, 0. Very good. And then I look at this. My original one was a 0, 4. This one's a 4, 0. That's good. So 4, 0 is here. And then I have to pick either the left side of the squared or the right side of the squared. If it was a bottom half, which half will go with that, left or right? Only the left side. Very good. So it would look like that. And if I want to do the left half only, do I want greater than 4 or less than 4? If it's the left side, which one do I want? Less than 4. Okay, and then I'm going to put in parentheses, that's the left side only. Okay? Then drawing your diagonal, just make sure that it cuts it in half, which it does. Okay, same thing on the other one. I think I forgot to draw it. Okay, but that diagonal should always be cutting your graphs in half. If it's not, then you're messing something up. Okay? Now, last thing here, it says, notice if this was originally a y-intercept, when I flipped it, where did it end up? As an x-intercept. Okay, so if one of them is a y-intercept, when I flip it, it will become an x-intercept. Or if it was originally x, it'll flip to be a y. So you should just notice that too. Okay? Alright, turn your paper over. You'll notice that we're not finished, but we're doing those tomorrow. So please don't lose your notes. Okay, the only notes we're doing tomorrow is these little 4 questions. So if you lose it, okay, then I'll give you another one, but just try not to lose it, okay? You don't have any homework. Just don't lose your notes. That's your homework. Yes, you may.